1 in total following this, the top 8. And Rasmus has only lost the 1 game. But we bring you the action here for our seniors final of our Warsaw regionals. And it's fantastic to bring them both. And that Empoleon start is amazing.
I was just going to say, and we talked about it right from the start, it's a great start here. Having the Empoleon active, but also getting Oranguru, Kyurem, and Palkia. Quite a few pieces there. Gets the heavy ball that we talked about so much this weekend and gets a chance to look at his prizes, get an idea, potentially pick out, I think it was the Kyurem that I saw in the prizes. That's good to have in hand and then potentially play later on if needed. But yeah, Empoleon, amazing story. We've seen it like distract and make it so hard for that Lost Zone box to come into play.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just having a chance to start it is fantastic. Going first, not even having to search it out to find it either is brilliant. You know, as mentioned from you a moment ago as well, if there's an escape rope right now without the additional Empoleon on the bench, of course, does take up a lot of bench space if you have to put both down. But if there isn't a second one, an escape rope could be a way for Simon to be able to start using the flower selecting. But we do see, of course, those 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass that Rasmus plays. The first one coming down despite having all those Pokemon already in hand. And we'll be looking to fill up his bench. It'll be interesting to see if he does go for the Empoleon. You know, respecting that there's a massive potential, and there it is. There's the other art of Empoleon V there alongside the Greninja for some draw power.
Absolutely, that's why we initially didn't catch it, because it's 2 different arts of the Empoleon card coming out with the Radiant Greninja, which we featured so much on stream as well. Gets the ability to discard an energy to draw 2 more cards with that concealed ability. Concealed cards ability, give him access to more tools, but that's an excellent start. We may be looking at 1 more energy attachment for the turn, and like that's as much of a start as you would like seeing from Rasmus's deck.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a Primate Wisdom as well, just to kind of see more cards, get more information. You know, the more cards you see, the better. There's a Capacious Bucket. Also, to one of the massive things that you would typically see with these kind of decks is sometimes putting a less useful card to the top of the deck and then shuffling it so that you don't see it next turn either. So great things to see and a great sequencing to see from our seniors and Rasmus. You know, one day they'll be playing in our Masters as well. We're going to see him maybe dominating the Masters field at the same time. But right now, in the current age division, they're at the top of the game in the finals of the seniors.
Yeah, they've been playing 7 rounds of Swiss yesterday and then making it through top 8 and top 4 earlier today to now play out the finals. Excellent sequencing, excellent board state at the moment. 2 energies in hand, 1 in the discard, maybe attaching 1. There we go to the Kyurem. That seems to be the attacker of choice later on in the game. And yeah, we have yet to see like the Palkia Vstar, the Kyurem VMax to come into play, abilities to be used. And yeah, there's a Sableye actually discarded with that quick ball, giving Simon the chance to actually do his first deck surge. He seems to be eyeing out the Lumineon, which is exactly what we saw in the other matchup, where Empoleon shut off the ability, so you needed one of your rule box Pokemon with an ability to make use of that and get a supporter out to access more cards here.
Yeah, definitely. As Empoleon's only shutting off those basic Pokemon that would stop Simon from using, from using the Comphase and the flower selecting ability. That Lumineon is going to be vital for Simon to continue putting cards into the Lost Zone for his engine to work. You know, he needs that Chorus's Experiment to be able to put 2 Lost Zone cards into the Lost Zone for himself so that he can start using his attackers at some point within this game. You know, he does discard the Sableye right now, does have access to Ordinary Rod. It is just a 1 copy because it's not the main attacker in this matchup. You do have a variety of attackers with that Sableye and the Cramorant, and also plays the Snorlax as well, being able to deal 180 damage from the thumping Snore attack with just 3 colors energy. Also is able to typically tank a hit, being a big heavy Pokemon, 150 HP as well. So that we could potentially see that come into play if that comes an option to maybe take a 2-hit KO as well. Yeah.
And we saw the Colress being played, and I think that's a Drapion and maybe
Scoop Up Net, it looks
Scoop Up
like.
Net being discarded into the Lost Zone. Giratina coming in play. The question is, he doesn't have any energy in hand to start preparing that Giratina for attacking anytime soon. But there's a Battle VIP pass, getting up to two more Pokemon onto the bench. Yes, you might want that Radiant Greninja, however, without access to any energies, you might not take advantage of that ability as of now, but of course you can always draw into those energies at any point later in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think from the chorus experiment, there was an additional chorus experiment also there as well. So on the next turn, you'll be able to continue chaining those key supporters to put those Lost Zone cards into the Lost Zone for that attack. Does have the opportunity, should they decide to do so, if they get the energy as well, to use Abyss Seeking, something we've seen a couple of times before, but it's a pretty unique way of almost using another chorus experiment together with it. So, you know, there's a few options there. Just unfortunately, it's just a little bit diminished because of those Emperor Eyes from the opposing Empoleon Bees.
Yeah, another interaction we had early on stream was the Shuriken attack from that Radiant Greninja, taking out 2 Comfy, but Simon won't allow that. Access gives him access to the ability of Manaphy, preventing sniping damage on the bench. That active Comfy is still in danger, of course, but turn is going back to Simon, draws for turn and use Oranguru's ability after concealed cards as well, getting access to so many cards in just 1 turn.
Yeah, again, we've spoken about it so many times this weekend, that all those combo pieces that a lot of these decks require to go forward in terms of how we can build out attackers and start progressing forward. But it looks like there wasn't much going on from Rasmus' side. No energy attachment. So it looks like it's just a pass back over to Simon. So there's straight down with the other chorus experiment. Now going to be increasing the Lost Zone count to 4, which typically would allow him to use a Cramorant's attack, but because of those Emperor's Eyes, it's not going to be possible. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah, interesting to see that also out of these 5 cards, none is an energy, so he doesn't have access to that either.
Oh, wow, yes.
Did he? He seems to be planning. Was that a Battle VIP pass and a Mirage Gate?
I believe so. Yep. I think deciding to put the Roxanne into hand. You know, valuing that disruption aspect of some of the cards that he's been able to play in his deck, and to great effect up until this stage for the Seniors final as well.
Yeah, and we have the balloon allowing him to retreat, and that's what we talked about earlier. The Abyss Seek. You might be thinking, well, it's a really hard time actually getting your Lost Zone counter up because you don't have access to Comfy, but 2 Colress Experiment and 1 Abyss Seek, and the counter is already up to 6.
Yep.
I see some energies in hand. Was that also Giratina Vstar?
There was a Water Energy, a Giratina Vstar. There, he's just going to get rid of the Water Energy because that doesn't typically necessarily need to be used for some of the attacks of Simon's board. Useful, of course, for the colorless aspect. But you know what, you want to be trying prioritizing some of the others. So with that capture energy already attached, already fulfilling that energy requirement, it's just going to be focusing on trying to find out where those grass and psychic energies are to be able to start using either Shred or maybe something like the Giratina Vstar to attack as well. But you know, not ideal when you're having to do it against certain Pokemon. You don't want to be using up your energies and resources too early.
Yeah, exactly. Currently at 6 Lost Zone counter. I think I saw a Colress Experiment in his hand, so he seems to be pretty set up. He has the Giratina Vstar, and he has the option to find maybe a Mirage Gate, maybe more energies to attach as well. On the other side, Rasmus taking time for a deck search. He played an Irida to get a water Pokemon and an item out. This might be the Palkia Vstar, for example, getting energy accelerated. Maybe Capacious Bucket, we saw that last turn, getting 2 more energies out as well, discarding them with the concealed cards. I'm not quite sure if the marker on the Greninjas indicated that the ability was used, or if that is a marker that you flip to indicate that it's used. I don't think we missed the concealed card early on, did we?
I don't believe so as of yet. I think he would have gone straight for the Irida to begin with at the moment. So just picking up that Kyurem VMax and that Rotom Phone, maybe looking for an opportunity to find that water energy to put to the top and use that Glaciated World ability that we've seen to come to fruition for this deck at the moment, where you can, once during your turn, you may discard the top card of your deck. If it is a water energy, you may attach it to one of your Pokemon. So he's been able to find one of the water energies within the top 5 as well. It's really cool tech card to use with Rotom Phone. I've seen some lists without any. There's just a one-off copy in Rasmus's list, and it looks like it could be paying dividends. He may need to choose another card depending on what his hand is currently looking at. but typically it's helpful to try and use that water energy to the top of the deck so that he can use Glaciated World to start powering up his attackers.
Yeah, you typically see that interaction with the Oranguru, putting one energy, but of course in that case you need that already in your hand. Seeing the prizes, 2 Capacious Buckets are actually prized, and I think he used one, which makes up for all 3 of his Capacious Buckets. So you might be asking, well, with Irida, why did he, as I mentioned, not pick out the Capacious Bucket to get 2 more energies, put one on top of your deck with that Oranguru? But that option was not available because 2 are prized and 1 was already played. So Rotom Phone was a great way to play around. Then looking at the top 5 cards, picking one of them to be put on top of your deck and the rest is being shuffled in, indicating that it's the top card here. And now he can evolve his Kyurem VMax and go from there.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it would be interesting to see when and how these players are able to get sort of attacks off. There's an energy retrieval for the 2 energies in the discard, sort of giving himself further options, further opportunities to use in terms of how to attach them to his board. At the moment, Simon not able to really threaten too much, only getting the 6 currently into the Lost Zone. There's the Oranguru Primate World ability. Oh, so just as we're going and just kind of checking here, I think the judges are just double checking, making sure that we're able to follow along with the play. And there it is. There's the Glaciated World ability to attach it straight to the Kyurem VMax.
Yeah, and because Giratina is not evolved into Giratina Vstar, it only has 220 HP. So using that Max Frost, which is 120 by default, and then 50 more per discard water energy. So technically by discarding 2 energies, and that's exactly what we're seeing, you deal exactly 220 damage, take out that Giratina that was charged with 1 energy. Yes, Simon has another Giratina, but that is not loaded up.
Yeah, it's now dealing with the threat that was in the active spot. Of course, Simon does have the Giratina Vstar in his hand. Will need to look for a way to deal with this Kyurem VMax. It does have 330 HP, lost impact dealing 280 currently, but does have access to a Vstar ability or Vstar power, Star Requiem, where for a Grass Psychic you can use this attack if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. Your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. So that's just a really easy way potentially to find all the right cards to be able to actually take the knockout on this Kyurem VMax and take 3 prizes, taking the lead in this Seniors final.
Yeah, and we actually hit another benchmark where the Lost Zone counter is at 8 now, activating that Mirage Gate here, getting 2 energy cards out of your deck. He has a Grass Energy in his hand. That's the other thing to consider. Like, he was drawing 2 cards from that concealed card. It was actually 2 energies. It was the Capture Energy and a Grass Energy. And you need to make sure that you have those cards in your deck when you want to use that Mirage Gate item card. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm just having a little flick through, a little look alongside Simon there. It looks like there was the Psychic and the Grass energies available to him. Does target the Comfey right now from the choice of cards there, just to make sure he needs to kind of bump himself up to that 10 Lost Zone count. It'd be really interesting if he does go for that play. Rasmus does have his board set up, should this go down, to try and maybe use another attacker. Because he does have that Palkia Vstar also set up and ready to use that Vstar Star Portal ability. Again, we've mentioned it numerous times, that opportunity to surge water energies back onto the board where required. So interesting to see. I believe we might be going up to 9 now with the Comfey. Flower selecting, that's a Cramorant that's gone. You know, it's gone beyond the stage of using that single prizer to start applying pressure now. Here comes the first Mirage Gate. Likely to grab that Psychic and Grass energy out of the deck and apply it to that Giratina. So interesting to see how we continue with this and whether there will be an attack off or not.
Absolutely. Like since Rasmus decided to go on the offensive and start attacking with the Kyurem, the Empoleon is no longer active, which allows the flower selection not only once but potentially twice in this turn. And if he gets both activated and then potentially has a Scoop Up Net in hand, he could then withdraw that Comfey and have the Giratina in the active position to attack. The 2 energies both going to that Giratina.
Yeah, so kind of making sure that he has the correct energy cost to be able to make an attack. Does need to do 1 more flower selecting to hit that 10. Hopefully we'll have that opportunity to use a switching out to get back into the Giratina. That's not an escape rope, something like one of the scoop up nets or the switch that he has in the deck. So it'll be interesting to see, because he's committed that energy attachment of the, I believe, the capture energy already to the Giratina Vstar. Can't attach the active to retreat now, but already has done so with the air balloon anyway. We do see from that flower selecting
actually
that tool jammer taken over the Giratina Vstar instead, now being attached there. So it's really interesting to see now. Just got to find a way to switch out of this Pokemon to be able to deal with that active.
But he has a scoop up net in hand.
Yeah,
That's
I think you were about to mention. Yeah, has a scoop up net in hand.
Yeah, and there are different ways to actually prevent that Star Requiem from happening, but now that the Lost on counter is up at 10, he has that available. He would have the Wash energy potentially in his deck, but he couldn't play that in time on the Kyurem, so that's not an option. Maybe a big Parasol would have helped, but that's not typically played in this deck either, so that's going to be a big knockout, taking 3 prize cards and getting Simon ahead in this game.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting as well, because now he's got to think about what potential attackers may come up and hit this Giratina. Does have 280 HP, so it's quite a big tanky Pokemon already, as most V-Stars are. What he wants to do, and what I'd like to have seen, is that he didn't re-bench that Comfey, you know, but identifying that Palkia V-Star is on the bench and could be another attacker that comes up to try and swing for heavy damage. So it's fantastic to see he's just used that V-Star attack, doesn't commit any further energies and loss of energies, because he's not using Lost Impact, and now can potentially stream for another further 2 prizes next turn.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of Rasmus right now, and I see 2 choice bells. Because Simon didn't fill up his bench again, that Palkia won't be able to reach the 280 benchmark to knock out the Giratina Vstar, so one option would be to access the choice belt. One of them seems to be in the prizes. I'm not quite sure if he discarded the other one potentially, but there's only one more copy in the deck. And starting with a Capacious Bucket, getting 2 energies out of the deck, filling the deck any further, helps you with maybe concealed cards, drawing into that, and then you still have your Vstar power available. We see Luminion actually getting a supporter card, not only filling your deck out further, but maybe potentially getting you that Irida. That would be one way to get the choice belt item as well.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's really interesting now because he has that tool jam on the active Giratina V-Star. Rasmus instantly promoted the Empoleon with the air balloon, so I'll be interested to see if he has to, if hopefully he's clocked on. Hopefully, you know, it's kind of what he's expected once that was attached. Does have the option of Lost Vacuum, but unfortunately we do see it in the prizes as well. So he will have to potentially dig or look for either the escape rope that he does play 2 copies of, or the switch. Or maybe he's just kind of looking at an option to maybe use it as an attacker. You know, you use the Empoleon V to attack. It's 130 damage for 3 energies, 1 water and 2 colorless energies. But you get the opportunity to move the energy away from this Pokemon as well, sort of preserving one of the energies that are available. So a few options available, but it'll be interesting to see. Maybe he does have a way of switching out without using the air balloon in hand already, or we'll look to get it.
Yeah, but thanks to that big knockout on the Pokemon VMax, it actually lets you take 3 prize cards. Roxanne was now activated, and Rasmus realized, hey, I need to also like disrupt the hand of Simon, and giving myself another 6 fresh cards, potentially drawing into the tools to retreat my Empoleon, and then be able to use that Starbirth ability and charge up Star Portal.
Yeah,
excuse me.
Definitely no, of course. Yeah, it's a fantastic way of kind of just again bursting energy onto the field. You know, it's really important here because the Palkia only has a 280 HP as well, and the Giratina's Lost Impact, just dealing a base 280 damage, does have to put 2 of the energies attached to any of your Pokemon, which is a key aspect of the Giratina deck, into the Lost Zone as well. Does mean it's just threatening that Palkia V-Star on the bench. So, of course, by playing that Roxanne, kind of disrupting Simon's board, kind of minimizing the chances of a boss that comes out. And I think they've just noticed there, unfortunately, that because of that tool jammer, that Empoleon V is in an awkward spot right now. Has got 3 energies on that Luminion as well, which will be really interesting to see. I believe it's
the second time we see the Aqua Return actually coming into play here.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We don't see it too often. That Lumineous sign is the main reason why people play the Luminion V. But the Aqua Return, being able to shuffle this Pokemon and all of the cards attached to it back into the deck for 120 damage, is actually quite, it's useful damage.
Yeah, 120. Unfortunately, though, smart enough from Simon's side here, he's promoting that Radiant Greninja, which has 130 HP, so it won't quite be knocked out, but then might potentially be stuck in the active position. One more thing to watch out for. The other way, I'm not sure if you saw it, but he has actually quite helpful cards in his hand. One of them being the Scoop Up Net on Simon's side, and the other one is the Mirage Gate. So he has two like almost perfect cards in hand. Get rid of that active Radiant Greninja, and then he also like the Mirage Gate not only helps you to charge up your attack cost, but also gives you access to more energy cards that you can then discard with your Lost Impact.
Definitely, and I guess Rasmus also played down that training court, also helping to activate that Greninja even more, just to kind of see more cards, draw more cards, despite already being disrupted to 2 from that Rosa. And there's the Scoop Up Net. Here comes the active Comfey with the Air Balloon. There is no Tool Jammer on Rasmus's side, so it's able to retreat using that Air Balloon should it choose to do so. There's a Scoop Up Net and an Escape Rope. Could be interesting to use Escape Rope maybe to find a way to deal damage to an opposing Pokemon, which is you're more wanting to take a hit on instead of what Rasmus has already promoted, because of course he's already bumped over his Luminion back into his deck. So it'll be really interesting to see there that the Escape Rope does actually go to the Lost Zone. Now up to 11. Maybe at this point a little bit irrelevant, the counting. It's good to kind of see. I think we hit a record, maybe 17 or 18 yesterday in one of the Masters game, which was really cool and interesting. But yes, beyond the 10 mark, we're already hitting all the thresholds for the Lost Zone engine.
Yep. Another thing to keep in mind, Simon is currently at 3 prize cards, so he needs to take 2 more Pokemon out. I don't expect Rasmus to play down another VMax Kyurem. So at this point, a single prize knockout on the Radiant Greninja, and then maybe one of the Pokemon we will get him the victory, the prize mapping, basically. We see the Ordinary Rod getting both energy and Pokemon back into the deck, giving you more options, more targets for that Mirage Gate as well. And yeah, he still has the option to retreat as Comfey and then go into an attacker. But yeah, we mentioned potentially that Escape Rope that landed in the Lost Zone at the end. They could have promoted one of the bench Pokemon from Rasmus, but there's still the other single prize or Oranguru. So one way or the other, he has to take 2 knockouts, and most likely will take 1 here.
Yeah, definitely, and I guess we're still playing out as much as you can in terms of the best sort of sequencing. Does find a boss's order from this Colress's experiment. Is that going to be a card that he's going to be looking to take? It's obviously very important. Chooses not to. I mean, once you take the knockout on this active single prizer, because the amount of damage that you do with Lost Impact, it's a little bit less of an issue. You'll be able to knock out pretty much anything on Rasmus's board. So identifying maybe some of the other cards are far more important. You know, that Temple of Sinnoh is a great stadium as well, plays the 2 copies. That will help to make that wash energy that you mentioned earlier just not have any other effect other than providing a colorless energy. So really interesting to see these kind of aspects and tech cards come into play, as we see also that Giratina, extra Giratina V on the bench with a grass and water energy attached now.
Yeah, and we saw,
and there's a Psychic.
And we saw exactly what happened earlier with the charging up that second attacker, potentially getting more energies into play. And he has to discard 2 energies. He actually chooses to attack with Shred, which is also enough, and doesn't have to discard any energies. Yeah,
fantastic identification of sort of plays here from Simon. Also removes the training court with that Temple of Sinnoh as well. That Giratina V is something actually a lot of people are starting to use as a bit of an attacker now, because you don't want to be sort of wasting or sort of managing the resources every time you use Lost Impact, having to discard 2 energies to the Lost Zone. That shred ability and attack is still doing enough damage for the majority of the time against single prize Pokemon. And with that in effect, it's still generally quite a big tanky Pokemon. It's still got 220 HP. He's put himself in a good position here. All the energies are still on the board. So yeah, really like that play by Simon.
Yeah, and one aspect about the game that we haven't talked about is how in the finals, in the single elimination stage of the tournament, the time was actually increased to 75 minutes. You might be wondering why we're still above 50 minutes. So this game is going on for about 25 minutes, but thanks to that increased timer, players actually have the time to play through potentially up to 3 games to their full potential. So I'm really interested to see how this is being played out with having so much more time, and maybe like none of these players is in any position to potentially scoop this game. That's not for this game, but they don't have to consider that as an option as much because they have the full 75 minutes to play out potentially 3 games.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that it should be factored in as well. You know, going into top cuts of top 8s, you do get the additional time. We want to give both players the maximum opportunity to really have a good set of games against one another and have a full 3 games if possible, if required, of course. But this kind of allows that to happen. 50 minutes sometimes can be a little bit taxing on some players, and that's why you've got to start considering sometimes scooping, going to the next game if you're even just a little bit behind. You know, there's different little things of variance that will allow that to kind of potentially get worse, can get better. You're sometimes always hanging on by a thread, thinking, oh, if I just draw this one card, I still have a chance. But now this scenario allows you to play through and still be in a good position. As we go back, just to very quickly touch on Rasmus as well, there's the free retreat using the air balloon to the single prizer here by Rasmus. So just looks like he's going to use that ability again to kind of put a card to the top of the deck, draw a new card, see some new information, double check his resources in his discard pile, which is again great to see. You've got to be able to manage those resources as well. I think he's just checking his options here. Still needs to take 2 big knockouts for those final 4 prizes.
And on the other side, Simon has 2
Oh,
Giratina.
there we go. There's just a boss being dropped. So yeah, that's the game. That means Simon will take game 1 of this seniors final, making sure he's made the mistake now around that tool jammer. Unfortunately, not able to retreat. He won't make it again. Yeah, it'd be great to see.
Absolutely. No Empoleon in early game so far, but obviously he has the option to draw into that with that quick ball, for example. We also saw the Rotom Phone that was played in game 1. Training Cord is discarded, I believe, to get you 1 more basic Pokemon out of your deck. Looking at the prizes, there's 1 Empoleon priced. I think I see a Drapion and a Kyurem and 3 Water Energies, but the energy count is quite high with 9 overall. I'm interested to see if we end up seeing the Wash Energy coming into play and preventing that Star Requiem here. Of course, Temple of Sinnoh, 2 copies in Simon's deck would prevent that or negate that effect, but that's something to keep in mind, of course. And discarding a Training Cord early on to potentially get rid of that Temple of Sinnoh is a huge decision that I hope won't hunt him down towards the end of the game.
No, sometimes you just have to play the cards that are in your hand because that Training Court allows you to kind of reactivate that Greninja many times using that Concealed Cards ability. Has targeted that as a key resource for this matchup, of course. There's no path to the peak from Simon's side, so that Radiant Greninja will always have access to use Concealed Cards as well. There comes the Rotom Phone, looking at the top 5 right now. Maybe just needs to kind of find the right card to set himself up.
And it seems like the Battle VIP pass. Yeah, sometimes you can use that for the ability of Kyurem, but also just finding 1 good card that you can then draw off Concealed Cards is very strong. We see that he had an energy in hand, so using that ability to draw into the Battle VIP pass, which gives you then access to 2 more basic Pokemon out of your deck onto your bench.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way of sort of making sure you get your board set up, and that's what we want to see, Rasmus, because it's very much a sort of combo deck that, again, we're going to keep mentioning. I sound like a broken record, but it's so important in this kind of format and meta right now. So now does have the Battle VIP pass. You know, does play the maximum 4 copies. So does Simon. Just to be able to get further 2 bench Pokemon onto the board. Does look like he's eyeing up the maybe 1 Empoleon and 1 Kyurem, not 1 Kyurem, sorry, 1 Palkia, to make sure that he can use that Star Portal ability where it does need to be used for bursting the energy back from the discard pile.
Yeah, looking at it, it's 1 Empoleon and a Palkia indeed, and potentially ending the turn on promoting that Palkia, Empoleon into the active position. But yeah, having the option to evolve your Palkia in the next turn, eventually using that Star Portal ability, is a huge factor in this game as well. Interested to see how he uses that ability this time. Last game, because of that Tool Jammer, he had to, or like he chose to attach 3 energies to that Luminion and then use the Aqua Return. Whereas this game, maybe he's loading up his Kyurem instead, or maybe Empoleon to start attacking with Empoleon. He has quite a few attacking options. Yeah,
definitely. And just with that, doesn't get the water attachment to his board, but does just pass over to Simon now. Simon instantly opens with that Battle VIP pass, an opportunity to search through his deck, find out what's prized, find out what's available to him. There's the double capture energies that are prized, which sometimes could be useful to have. It's such a powerful card to kind of help build your board state again alongside the Battle VIP pass, but not really something to be complaining too much at the moment. Able to get a Giratina V down alongside a Radiant Greninja, does play his own Luminion V down as well to get that Chorus Experiment, start chaining that that we saw him do so great in the first game.
Yeah, because he isn't going heavy on the early comp phase strategy, he has access to Colorless Experiment through that Luminion, which is a great way to get more cards into your hand, but also start increasing your Lost Zone counter. So let's see if that comes into play here, going second, playing a supporter card in your first turn, getting you 2 more cards, but like 3 more cards, but also looking at the top 5 cards, of course, in your deck. Interested to see if he might end up playing any comfies, because there's no Empoleon in the active position as of right now. There's a Colorless. Let's see if there's a comfy. There's
a few pretty good cards. There's a Giratina Vstar also available, I believe. So a few kind of interesting options to select with. There's that Energy as well. Maybe he wants to try and use that for concealed cards. So a few options. There's 2 already placed into the Lost Zone. We can't quite see what they are, but obviously definitely keeps the config. I think it keeps maybe a Chorus Experiment and also the Water Energy, kind of having a few different utility cards to try and do so. One of the key aspects Simon will have to try not to do is play one of his 2 copies of Escape Rope, because that gives Rasmus a chance to bring that Empoleon into active spot and try and slow down that engine.
Yeah, he was probably hoping to draw into one of his Scoop Up Nets, because that would help him to retreat or like pick up the Cramorant and gives you access to that comfy. With that Escape Rope, as you've mentioned, he doesn't have that option because Empoleon would come, but he kept the Water Energy, or he kept the energy in general, to use that to retreat manually.
Yeah, and there's a Flower selecting. Slightly awkward. Chooses to discard into the Lost Zone another Comfey, because he wants that energy for that concealed cards that we mentioned. Does have that Scoop Up Net that he's just drawn from that, and the Air Balloon as well. So he's maybe just one piece of the puzzle to just allow that Cramorant to instantly attack with the Spit instantly for 110 damage onto that Kyurem V, because right now he only has 3 Lost Zone cards. Needs 1 more for that Lost Provisions ability. So not far off, but maybe just 1 piece away.
Yeah, he would need either a second comfy, but I think that went to the Lost Zone. He would need a Scoop Up Net, and keep in mind, like, there's a Scoop Up Net, one piece apart, but because he already manually retreated, the Balloon, although reducing the retreat cost, won't actually help him.
No, it's oh, hang on a moment. I think there may have already been a manual retreat with the Water Energy. Good catch there as well from the Cramorant. So not able to free retreat away back from the Greninja, so that will have to stay in the active spot. Did already attach the Air Balloon to do so. I think Simon really wanted to try and hit that 110 damage as soon as possible, and I think it just got caught in the limelights a little bit. But not too much of an issue at the moment. There's not too much going on Rasmus's side, but there he just has to pass over, instantly evolving up those 2 big beefy Pokemon that he has, that Kyurem VMax and that Palkia Vstar now coming into play with an Irida coming down.
Yeah, it gives you access to a water Pokemon and an item card here. We might potentially see the Capacious Bucket. Last game, 2 of them were prized. I see none in the prizes this time. Gives you access to 2 more energies in your hand. One might go straight into the discard pile thanks to that concealed cards. You might want to attach one, and if you get access, to that Oranguru, you might potentially start using that. Seeing 4% of that off the field, that's probably 3 players, still making it to day 2 and potentially still being in competition is really great to see. So looking at this, we're resuming with game 2. There's currently 83 minutes left, and we get a little note here.
Yeah, so just to kind of confirm that the game state could have been repaired, so double prize card penalty. The end result was was that the game was unchanged. So thankfully, nothing too crazy. It's been completely repaired to the state that we can continue play. But there will be a small prize, double prize penalty for one of the players as well. We'll just get a confirmation exactly who that is shortly as we resume the action. So thank you very much for staying with myself, Alex Dow, and Barish Akos as well. Just as we were going back back into the game now. So we're still in our second game of our seniors final.
Exactly, and to pick up straight where we ended up before, it was the Irida hitting the field from Rasmus, potentially getting exactly this capacious bucket here and getting 2 water energies out of the deck. That's what we talked about. Now we want to see the concealed cards. That's exactly what's happening here. 1 energy hitting the discard pile, and 2 more cards are being drawn. Like, this is the turn where Rasmus wants to take full advantage of that promotion of the
Of that Greninja,
of that Greninja, exactly.
Yeah, definitely, because it was a bit unfortunate from Simon having to already retreated with that water energy on that Cramorant, but you know, he had to get that Comfey into the active to start using that flower selecting as soon as possible. And now as we start to use some of these abilities here, just coming through, looks like that Glacier World was used at the same time, and the Roxanne, which has been discarded, I believe, from that ability.
Exactly.
So that's hitting the discard pile there.
Yeah, so it was a risky play. He didn't have any energy to put back on top of the deck. So he was like risking discarding maybe an important card, and Roxanne is actually 1 off in his deck, and he won't have that comeback potential in game 2 here. So it's very unfortunate, of course, and it's like, we were talking about taking advantage. I don't think I see any energy attached, despite 2 getting out of the deck with that capacious bucket. So it seems like Rasmus is following a different plan for this game specifically, and the action goes back to Simon, this time being able to retreat his Greninja and gets the flower selection going.
Yeah, and there's, I think, also may have used a Chorus as an experiment as well, because there's that Drapion V. He's gone up to 6 in the Lost Zone now. So 1 away from Mirage Gate being available to him. There's the second Comfey coming down as well. So starting to get to a point where there's numerous options to go forward, and there it is. There's a scoop up net on the active Comfey to put the second one in the active spot now. Use flower selecting. There's a Giratina V and a boss. Only 2 copies in his deck. And 1 already now in the Lost Zone, but that hits the 7, ready for Mirage Gate to start activating.
Yeah, we actually saw the same interaction in game 1 as well, where a boss was discarded into the Lost Zone early on, and then it was a top deck boss into that victory in game 1. So yeah, getting down to 1 boss in your deck, quite crucial here, but seeing that his Lost Zone counter is at 7 now, the question is, will he be able to access that Mirage Gate early on? There is the escape rope, but keep in mind, Empoleon is on the bench ready to be promoted.
Yeah, it's what we mentioned a little bit earlier, but Rasmus isn't immediately going to it. He's got to be thinking about what might actually be coming up to deal some damage, but does go for the Empoleon V. That Emperor's Eyes ability will be active now. With that Giratina V in the active spot as well. Maybe Simon's looking for a different opportunity to kind of deal with it at this moment in time. Does evolve that Giratina V into that Giratina Vstar and plays the Mirage Gate ready to start powering up for some sort of attacks. And there goes the Psychic and Water Energy.
Yeah, should Rasmus be the player that was penalized with the double prize penalty here, then Simon would only need to take 4 prizes. Knocking out the Empoleon brings him down to 2 more prizes required to be taken, so that is a big game-changing factor. He's charging up. The question is, does he want to discard 2 energies with lost impact, or does he want to use his lost his Star Requiem ability or like attack here basically to take the knockout? That's a big question, and then again it makes a big difference if he has to draw all 6 or potentially only 4 prizes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, typically you want to try and to maybe save that Vstar power attack from Giratina Vstar for some of the bigger Pokemon like that Kyurem VMax that's been sat on the bench at the moment, and he does choose to go for that Lost Impact, increasing his Lost Zone count to 9 now, having to discard 2 from any of the board is set. So dealing the 280 damage, removing the Empoleon V from play.
Of course, yeah, I totally missed that Star Requiem's requirement was not fulfilled yet because the Lost Zone count was at 7. So the only option really was that Lost Impact. But now at 9 total in the Lost Zone, 1 more flower selection or maybe a Colress if available will bring it up there and potentially take another knockout. We have yet to find out who was actually penalized with the double double prize loss. But yeah, that might be a huge factor here.
Okay, no problem at all. So it was just, I believe, actually just a double prize penalty in the first game because Rasmus wasn't able to take more than 2 prizes anyway. That's why we've been able to just confirm that it was repairable so that allowing both players to continue into game 2 with a fresh set. There's a Hisuian heavy ball from Rasmus there. He's going to be having to think about what he's going to do in terms of going forward, because he is now 2 prizes down. Simon does currently only have 1 energy on that Giratina Vstar, and having already played 2 Mirage Gates, there's 2 more remaining somewhere in his deck or hand. So he would just be looking to try and power up those things as soon as possible. He's already prize map his route to victory. There's the Origin form Palkia Vstar in the active spot right now, only at 280 HP, and then still has at some point access to that Star Requiem Speed Star power ability to be able to just, or Star Requiem, sorry, to be able to just take the knockout on any V Pokemon.
Yeah, had a quick look through his prize cards to now play down the Irida. Might be another way to get more energies out of a deck with a Capacious Bucket. We have seen that over and over again. He might have chosen 2 cards, which we're not quite sure yet. He put them aside. Might enter the field very soon, or his hand especially. So yeah, let's see what combo he decides to go for this turn. Like, despite Simon losing 1 turn earlier, Rasmus couldn't take full advantage of that. We see another Kyurem hitting the bench, and there's the Capacious Bucking. Get it 2 more water energies out of the deck. Slowly but surely thinning out the deck, giving him access to more energies. Of course, concealed cards is one thing to keep in mind, to draw even more cards. But yeah, slowly, like, we still, there's only been 2 prizes taken so far.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Rasmus' side, this is another game where he had a turn which he just wasn't really able to do anything. He played that Irida, had that Capacious Bucket, did use concealed cards, and then had to use that Glaciated World just to kind of see what it was. It wasn't enough to really give him an opportunity to get enough energy to attack when Simon had that active Greninja and stuck. Because of that retreat concerns. So there is the Star Portal ability, does apply 2 water energies to the active Palkia Vstar, does have the choice belt for the return KO on the Giratina Vstar as well, also setting up an additional water energy on that Kyurem VMax. The hand does have a Melanie also available to him, and also the hand attachment to the Kyurem VMax. So this is quickly turned around for Rasmus, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely. The choice belt is very crucial there to actually take the knockout. But yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't seen any Oranguru hitting the field. Like, we saw how Roxanne was discarded early on with that ability. Maybe that could have been prevented. Keep in mind that 3 energies are in the prizes still. Like, with 6 energies left in total, 4 on the board, he doesn't have access to too many energy cards and can't really use that concealed cards ability too much more. So yeah, let's see how and if Simon finds a way back into this game, because he has a Giratina with 1 energy, but he needs to access the other Mirage Gates, of course, to charge up that Giratina, find the Giratina Vstar to start attacking. Shred, of course, only dealing 160 damage, would be a 2-hit knockout, but on the other side, thanks to that choice belt, even if the bench is not fully filled, that Giratina V with only 220 HP will be knocked out.
Yeah, so there's quite a few different options here, but he's going to have to start focusing on some of the aspects that he's had to already kind of manage his resources in a particular way so that he can continue this game. Doesn't quite have the attack already, as you mentioned. Does go for the quick pull, discarding a Comfy. Just got to make sure that discard pile is pushed back to the right place as well. Yep. Make sure it's as clean and as easy as possible to sort of follow along with the viewers at home and everyone watching. So just going through the quick ball options right now, has the Giratina V, just reconfirming what's in his deck right now as well, and just kind of assessing his options, which is great to see. Not rushing necessarily to make certain plays, and really putting himself in the best position possible to try and find a way around this Palkia Vstar in the active spot for Rasmus.
Yeah, I think Giratina Vstar definitely has to come into play here to make a big change in the tide of the game. There's a Mirage Gate and another Ordinary Rod, which of course helps you putting those wonderful energies back into the deck so you have access to them. We see the Mirage Gate and we see a Psychic Energy and a Grass Energy available, so they will both be attached to that Giratina with the Psychic Energy already in play. And the last question is, how and when does he find the Giratina Vstar? He's able to of course retreat that raiding Greninja. But looking at like the prize mapping for the rest of the game, both players currently have 4 prizes. They both need to take out 2 of the opposing V Pokemon. Rasmus has his Palkia Vstar charged up and ready to attack, and on the bench has another Kyurem VMax with currently 2 energies. Only needs 1 more energy. Should he be taking any prize, very likely to draw Like, should he be taking out Pokemon? Like, one Pokemon, he's guaranteed an extra energy out of the prize, of course, and if not, there's also more in the deck to access. So with 3 energies, the Kyurem would also be ready. So Rasmus, pretty set, has 2 attackers more or less ready to attack.
Yeah.
On the other side, Simon is just about to set up his Giratina Vstar, so there will be 1 Pokemon. If that somehow ends up being knocked out, we saw the interaction yesterday where if Kyurem attacks and only has 3 energies, even if it discards all of them, it only reaches 270. The choice belt is currently at Palkia Vstar.
Yep.
So you can't have access on that for the Kyurem, so he needs to find a different way to maybe through the ability to find a 4th energy to take that knockout.
Yeah, and I think Simon's had a couple of bad draws here with the Chorus Experiment not finding that Giratina V-Star, having to pick up a scoop up net, having to manually retreat, not manually retreat, but retreat using a retreat cost with that air balloon from that Greninja into the Comfey, and just doing another flower selecting and having to discard into the Lost Zone an additional Giratina V. So still hunting for that Giratina V-Star so he can return KO here. Otherwise, we'll find himself in a really awkward position, and it doesn't look like his hand is really going to be too helpful. Does have a switch and the scoop up net, so it's possible he could Comfey once again, but it seems very unlikely now that he just seems to be one piece of the puzzle missing from being able to take a full knockout. So just has to use Cramorant's Spit Innocently, yes, for 110 damage, kind of maybe setting up that Palkia V-Star, which isn't ideal, but kind of hands back the advantage to Rasmus.
It's really interesting how the numbers work out. With 280 HP, if you take 110 damage, you're down to 170 HP. Unfortunately, the Shred would be 10 damage short of taking that out in the next turn. But Simon realizes that, scoops game 2, and we'll be seeing a game 3 between Simon and Rasmus at the Seniors finals here in Warsaw Regionals.
Yeah, that boss being so vital from Rasmus. Big final for this Pokemon Regionals in Warsaw. We're just now opening back with the field, and Simon obviously is going to be going first and immediately uses that flower selecting. Unfortunately or fortunately, he has already one in hand, so that was an easy choice maybe to use that Chorus's Experiment as Lost Zone fodder, and now just attaches an energy to the Sableye, using it as a pivot retreat because of that scoop up net, looking to try and maximize the flower selecting as much as possible. Looks like he's got another Comfey and a switch there as his choices.
Yeah, awkward situation, of course, because you want to have both cards. You want to have the switching option and you want a second Comfey. But it's really nice how even in the Seniors division, if it's game 3, final moment, the pace just picks up. And you can see how these players, after getting comfortable in these 2 games now, are picking up the pace, playing a little bit faster, and you see the pass over to Rasmus' side.
Yeah, relatively quick turns there by Simon there. Rasmus does have the Battle VIP pass. Simon hangs his head a little bit, unfortunately, because he didn't hit any of his 4, even from the double flower selecting there, seeing an additional 4 cards after drawing for turn. And Rasmus now can start to use some of his cards to kind of disrupt his opponent with that Emperor Eyes Empoleon V that he's just quickly grabbed out from the Battle VIP pass as well, but also getting that Radiant Greninja to kind of start setting up his own board. Hopefully he has an energy in hand or access to a Capacious Bucket.
Yeah, quick check if he wants to go through back into the deck, then decides to shuffle up, use the heavy ball to check the prizes. Beyond just a deck search, of course, having both options, getting a basic Pokemon out of your prize, but also being exactly sure which cards are in your prize cards. Yesterday we have seen how some players have actually taken note of their prize cards to make sure that you don't forget that either. And we see the Kyurem VMax, Ordinary Rods. There's the Quick Ball, the Battle VIP Pass that he no longer will need, and an Ultra Ball in the prizes.
Yeah, nothing too crazy from Rasmus' side. However, if we now look over to Simon's prizes, we see 2 Giratina Vs sat in the prizes right now. He plays a free line, so it's going to be really difficult right now. He's going to have to use 1 to just kind of use as a backup attacker initially. Maybe start trying to focus on that single prize direction, start applying pressure that way, but we'll have to see how Simon's going to navigate his turn so far, as Rasmus has now just grabbed his other Empoleon V, looking to disrupt as soon as possible. Of course, Simon already up to 2 from 2 flower selectings, does have the Chorus Experiment in hand, looks like he's going to quickly get up to 4, but we'll need to aim to get to that 7 as soon as possible.
Yeah. once again, you see how strong that Irida card is in these decks, in this water decks. Getting access to that Capacious Bucket, getting access to more water energies, just speeds up the game so much. And he has so many more tools in hand. He has the wash energy, if you can attach it early on the Kyurem, which hasn't hit the bench yet, but could be very well searched out with that Quick Ball here. That will be one way to prevent this Directium later on in the game. More energies, more search cards. Like Rasmus seems to be in a very comfortable position here. There's the Quick Ball. He's going back into his deck and finding that Kyurem. Yeah. So the wash energy might very well be played here. And it's just a very, very commanding position, very well played out first turn here on Rasmus's end.
Definitely, and what I just don't want to see, similar to game 1 and game 2, where unfortunately there was one turn where Rasmus keeps giving up, because sometimes this deck does end up in a position where it needs that top deck or needs an additional card to kind of continue. Does play the escape rope to get that Empoleon V in the active now. Simon immediately goes for the Chorus Experiment. Does see the Battle VIP pass as the very next card. If only he had the chance to use it. The Chorus Experiment in his first turn as well. He would have seen it and been able to get more on the bench. Does immediately Lost Zone. That's Battle VIP pass. Beyond turn 1, it's not quite as useful, or not useful at all. I've said that exactly the same thing yesterday as well, alongside that Ordinary Rod. So quick balls the Water Energy. This might be his first search. Does immediately pick out the Giratina V. He might have to quickly look and see that there's no other one. Yeah, and
he checks twice to make sure that he's not missing his Giratina.
You saw that movement forward there. Now he's kind of contemplating what options he has, because he can't really use Cramorant to attack now because of that Empoleon V in the active spot. So it just means going to the single prize route is going to be really difficult because of the way Rasmus has set up his board. This could be really, really bad for Simon.
Absolutely, and we also saw the Capture Energy in his hand, so he might attach it to get out a second basic Pokemon. That's exactly what happening, so he will be going back into his deck. He checked his hand as well to make sure that he's not missing another Giratina copy that he maybe overviewed earlier. But yeah, that's the Giratina, the Gradient Greninja on both sides now. And yeah, like this is not a great game for Simon. He didn't have a great start. The double Empoleon is already out, right? 2 of his Giratina V are priced. This is not what you want to see going into this final game of our Seniors finals here in Warsaw. And yeah, Simon, you see his body language as well. He's quite frustrated, but there have been greater comebacks, and there's still the opportunity to take this game home. Yeah,
definitely. So he'll just be looking to try and maybe make use of some of those disruption cards. Remember, one of the key weaknesses of these Palkia Kyurem decks is just being able to use... just confirming that's 3 cards there after the concealed cards. I just want to confirm there's no extra card was seen to kind of tempt it back into the favor of Simon. We'll just get the judge to kind of confirm that that's not been seen and all okay to continue this game. But yes, in the meantime, we'll just be looking at Simon just trying to think about how he could potentially disrupt, use that Roxanne that he has in his list to fruition, because that Kyurem doesn't like it when it has to discard all those energies to take big knockouts. And then if it gets Roxanne, it's really difficult sometimes to come back out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely hard disruption there from the Roxanne potentially. Yeah, I just talked about how they were picking up the pace, right? And then suddenly, when you want to draw 2, you suddenly pick the 3rd card. We're not quite sure how the judges will rule on that, and they will see if there was any potential advantage gained. I think we just got to know that there was a double price penalty.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like from the fan action of drawing, which sometimes can catch you out, he did draw 3 cards in effect and saw the 3rd card, which means that it's a bit of an irreparable state. It's a bit of a penalty that has to happen. And unfortunately for Rasmus, will be receiving a double prize penalty, which means all Simon has to do is actually take 4 prizes in this final game 3 to be crowned champion. Rasmus can still pull this back, of course, because he's still in a commanding position based on his board state, but does need to take all 6 prizes to take this championship home.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it takes a lot to come back from this, of course, keeping your composure after a tiny mistake that causes like a double prize penalty here. The prize, of course, as corrected earlier, will not be drawn, but Simon will only need to have to draw 4 more prizes. On the other side, Rasmus, as we said, a very commanding position, very dominating board at the moment, and if you can just continue that, he's getting out a search here, so potentially a Vstar or VMax entering the field as well. So he still has the upper hand, and he can still draw even 6 prizes before Simon gets to draw 4 with how this board looks right now. So yeah, just get over that tiny mistake and continue playing, focusing, remembering yourself that you're here in finals for a reason, and that you can still come back from this.
Yeah, he just needs to compose himself, and I'm sure he has. He's still, like I said, in a commanding board state position right now. Simon having to also lost zone that ordinary rod alongside also then quick balling to find out that he doesn't have that Giratina, extra Giratina Vs in his deck. Does mean Rasmus has a route to victory. Of course, we're in a very privileged position. We can see the list, we can see the prizes, so we know what's going on. Of course, don't 100% know what the players are thinking in their minds right now, but if he does find a way to target that Giratina V, given the opportunity to, then he might be able to sort of just take the game away from Simon at this point. And there is, amazing from Rasmus. This is one of the few things we haven't really seen too much over this weekend. It's always been a threat. Here as well, is that an extra attachment, because there was already attachment from the Kyurem as well, but at the same time we've already got the Star Portal with the 3 energies onto the Radiant Greninja, and there's the Air Balloon, and that Moonlight Shuriken is going to be coming into effect there. There's 2 Pokemon with less than 90 HP on Simon's state of the board, and there goes the Sableye and Comfey. There goes his engine.
Yeah, that's exactly what he needed to come back into this game. Shake off the tiny mistake. Now taking 2 prizes early on with no clear response from Simon here. He has that Giratina with 1 single energy, but the Lost Zone counter currently only at 4, so he doesn't have access to the Merge Gate yet. So it will be quite tricky to charge up the Giratina in this turn and evolve it as well. So that's potentially not an option, and having drawn these 2 prizes, so both players are basically down to drawing 4 more prizes to win this game. So game completely open, and we also see how the additional time comes into effect. We're deep into game 3, 60 minutes into this round, and there's still 50 minutes to be played, so plenty of options for both players.
Yeah, and we've already seen multiple times over this weekend where a lot of our feature matches are going to time. And even here, having played 2 full games and going into the 3rd final game now, we're looking at a potential concern going into time here. And we do see the Giratina Vstar evolved up onto the bench there. And there is, it looks like is that a boss? Or was that? Yeah, it looks like a boss targeting one of Rasmus's Pokemon. I can't quite see what's in the active position now, what's been chosen as the active spot. There's a switch from that into the Cramorant as well, so he's just going to be looking to deal 110 damage with Spit instantly. Yeah,
that's one option, of course, to come to the game. But before that, he's attaching 1 more energy, slowly but surely charging up that Giratina to eventually get ready. And we have yet to find out which Pokemon gets 110 damage. It might be that Radiant Greninja, but indeed it is the Palkia Vstar now sitting at 170 HP left. Yeah, interesting dynamic here, of course. There's 1 energy at the Palkia Vstar, so he's 1 energy away from attacking. 4 bench plus 2 bench is 6. That's definitely more than enough to pick out the Cramorant and get 1 step closer. But of course, with 4 prizes left and that big threat with the Giratina Vstar currently at 2 energies, if you have the option to gust that up potentially, take the knockout with either with the Palkia, maybe a Choice Belt combination gets you up there. I don't know if there's an Echoing Horn that we haven't seen yet, maybe. So that could get up the numbers. Alternatively, find your Kyurem VMax, charge it up, and then take it out. So there are quite a few options here. The Choice Belt and 3 energies on Kyurem VMax would be enough to take out the Giratina. So quite a few options for sure for Rasmus. But yeah, if he finds a way to take out that Giratina, then he's in a very commanding position.
Yeah, it looks like that's an Ultra Ball there, if I'm assuming, because there's 3 cards that hit the discard pile. And there's the Kyurem VMax, as you've mentioned, Barris. He will want to be targeting that Giratina V-Star on the bench there for Simon, because it's just that as a major threat right now in terms of stopping Rasmus from becoming a senior regional champion. Excuse me, getting ahead of myself. It could happen back in on the road to Yokohama.
That's a big foreshadowing, and maybe he's going to win Yokohama World Championships. And you've spoken too soon, but yeah, let's see how this is going actually in game 3 here, and if we will be able to crown our first regional champion of this weekend. Kyurem VMax entering the field, being evolved. We haven't seen an Oranguru yet, but maybe with that ability you could get an extra. But his option is to attack with that Palkia. So he attaches another energy and takes out the Cramorant down to 3 prizes now.
Yeah, and Simon doesn't really have much of an engine at the moment because all those confies are currently gone. One in the discard pile, one in the lost zone right now. So he's got to think about how he can maneuver this turn right now as well. That Roxanne is a possibility now, having been activated because it's gone down to 3. Because Rasmus has gone down to 3 prizes. But when I had a quick look at Simon's hand, there wasn't really much going on, unfortunately. It's one of the troubling things that he was working with. Because that Comfy has now gone down, he has no way to continue kind of bursting through. So be interested to see what he can apply now. There is the Roxanne, actually, which is the only play he can make. I think he was maybe considering scooping up that Greninja, getting that Giratina in the active spot as soon as possible, but that being said, that Kyurem VMax on the bench just threatening that Giratina Vstar, should it come into the active spot.
Absolutely, and I think it has the wash energy as well. One more piece to keep in mind, but Lost on Contact currently at 4. The Star Requiem is far away from being a threat here. Roxanne, we talked about that quite a bit this weekend, a great comeback mechanic. However, if your whole board is already set up, if you have an active attacker charge up, if you have another attacker or 2 maybe on the bench, all the options being down to 2 cards, is not the worst thing in the world.
No, definitely not. But I think from Simon's point of view, he's going to need to try and get this Greninja out the active spot and potentially find that grass energy to be able to attack, because that's what's missing right now. Has a Psychic and a Capture already attached to his Giratina Vstar. I'm not too sure he's been able to find it so far. Does have the Scoop Up Net to get out of the active, so may have to try and find a way to attack with that. Cramorant again. Spit Innocently just being an option to do another 110 damage. Already used Roxanne, so that Quick Ball could have maybe looked for something like the Snorlax, but there's no way of powering it up. He's just going to have to do another 110 damage. Again, passing back over to Rasmus, not taking any KOs here. And Rasmus in a commanding position despite having that double prize loss right now.
Absolutely, but since a Cramorant single prize attacker is promoted, unless there's a gust effect, like he's only taking 1 prize, and they're still both at 2 prizes remaining. On
two
Simon's
knockouts
side,
remaining.
2 knockouts remaining, exactly. So yeah, there's the Palkia Vstar with 220 damage at this point, 60 damage more to knock it out. But yeah, finding the grass energy will be the big quest here. Either through a Mirage Gate, which he still should have 3 or 2 copies left in his deck, and of course he can also manually draw into that. So that's an option to take. Knockout's been taken here. Rasmus is going down to 2 prizes, and we have to see if Simon has a way to come back into this game with this next turn, because he's running slowly but surely out of time.
Yeah, so it's going to be really, really difficult here. He's looking at promoting that Radiant Greninja once again. That top deck is the grass energy. God. Doesn't have a retreat way of retreating right now, though. But if only he just able to find a way to do so. Does have an option of that Quick Ball. We don't see that Luminion currently prized, so that could be one option to find a way out of this game and back in to be able to try and sort of salvage something here as well.
He's eyeing out the Snorlax, however. Let's see if that is potentially an option. I don't really see any Mirage Gate, so you can't charge that up either. However, otherwise that would be a great attacker to knock out the Palkia and leave a single prize attacker in the front. But of course, that top deck grass energy was huge. So all we need is to find a way to retreat that Radiant Greninja from the active, be able to attack without leaving you open to... We already saw, we missed that earlier, the attachment of the Choice Spell on the Kyurem, so that is ready to attack.
Yeah, he really didn't want to use that Luminion, of course, because that gives an easy 2 prizes for Rasmus to take as his final spot. We'll be looking to try and find other ways of impacting this matchup as well. Does get the Chorus Experiment from the Luminion's ability. So we'll be looking to try and find a way to get this Greninja out the active, of course, without having to attach that energy to actually free retreat. Will be putting 2 Lost Zone cards, 2 cards into the Lost Zone. Did see a bit of a bit of a tell, unfortunately, that he's obviously missed the card that he may have needed, which is,
But
again, really
I think I saw
unfortunate.
2 Mirage Gates, which would get him access to more energies and then potentially manually retreat while also charge up the Giratina. That would be one option. I think I saw 2 copies of that between those 5. Grass Energy and Battle VIP Pass hitting the Lost Zone.
Is one short, unfortunately, at the moment with Mirage Gate with 7 cards. So just having to use that concealed cards to try and draw 2 more. I think he might have hit the Tool Jammer, which is, again, a useful card to kind of impact that choice belt. But again, just that kind of awkward spot where Simon just isn't able to move out the active. He had that decision to make whether he wanted to promote the Giratina Vstar before he moved the Greninja up. Was looking at maybe playing that Mirage Gate. Does make the play to put the Grass Energy on the Vstar, so he does have an attacker. Does have a balloon. Hang on. This is a turn of events. I didn't realize that was in the hand. But does put him in a position where he can take the knockout here. Will Lost Zone 2 extra energies and then be able to activate Mirage Gate. Is Mirage Gate available? There we go. Thankfully, the judges are completely on top of it and watching the game as well, just to make sure for the viewers at home that there's only 6 currently in the Lost Zone, as you can see at the top of the screen there. So it will be likely a lost impact for knockout. Further into the Lost Zone, then Mirage Gate is active.
Absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about that the Mirage Gate play, and of course it was going through the mind of the player as well. So shout out to the judges to making sure that there was no problem coming up there. But we haven't emphasized the Tool Jammer yet for 2 reasons. Number 1, that balloon is no longer active and it's harder for it to retreat. And second, the choice belt from that Kyurem VMax will prevent or will not deal any additional damage, so he will be short to take the knockout. However, we want manual attachment, and potentially for the ability, a second one, having 4 energies could also be enough to take the knockout.
Yeah, 100%. I think let's hope Rasmus isn't going to be making that same mistake as in game 1, because he's got that balloon on that active Empoleon again. Simon with a fantastic draw when I saw that coming through from concealed gate. Concealed cards, sorry, to be able to get the Tool Jammer and then kind of impact not only that air balloon, as you mentioned, that choice belt as well, kind of putting himself in a really good position. Both players now only needed to take 2 more prizes to be crowned the first Warsaw Regionals Seniors champion that we're going to have on this weekend. So really important turn here for Rasmus. It's going to be interesting to see how he deals with it. He may have just noticed that either a certain card's either prized, which is unlikely, but may have just noticed that he promoted that active Empoleon again, because there was a bit of a realization.
Absolutely. It does make me wonder, with that Kyurem being the choice of attack and having the Giratina Vstar already active, you didn't want to escape rope either anyway. So yeah, maybe there was one of these muscle memories where like, hey, one of my Pokemon has been knocked out. I will just promote the Pokemon with the balloon and then have all the flexibility in the next turn to then retreat to whatever I want. Maybe not realizing that, hey, the Tool Jammer is in play and it will actually prevent me from playing that. But there are more options, of course. He has one switch that I haven't seen being played yet. Escape Rope, of course, would bring up a different Pokemon. Ideally, that single prizer in that Radiant Greninja. But yeah, he's eyeing up. There's a Belanyi.
Yeah, for 3 cards. Don't believe he's drawn the card to kind of switch out of that Empoleon there as well. Really does leave him in a very precarious position where Mirage Gate will have a position to just kind of activate all of those attacks from that Giratina Vstar again. And there's a Rotom Phone. Does he have an option there? There's the there's the Lost Vacuum. That may be an out to kind of get out of the way with that Tool Jammer as well. But does he have a way to
if he
draw
has
into
another
it?
energy in hand to use that concealed card ability, which I don't think has been used in this turn yet. So maybe putting that Lost Vacuum on top and then getting that through concealed cards could get rid of that Tool Jammer, then allow you to retreat and deal additional damage. That could be the key to victory here.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what's actually in the hand. There is the Lost Vacuum going to the top. He hasn't played it yet, but you never know. We can't quite see the hand right now, but we're all looking at it together. There's the Training Court, which is massive, and straight for the concealed card, surely. Just kind of pointing. He's grabbing the Water Energy from the Training Court, from the discard. Both the judges and the players are just confirming their play. There's the concealed cards for the top 2.
Big
breath,
relief there.
big breath, sigh of relief there by Rasmus. Being able to now play the Lost Vacuum. Gets an energy retrieval as well, attaches manually to the bench power Kyurem VMax, and there's the Lost Vacuum, getting rid of the Tool Jammer, and now activating that air balloon once again to retreat and take the final 2 prizes.
And Rasmus Wagner is your Warsaw Seniors champion.
It's actually amazing.